Hey everyone, and welcome to the Action Hero Podcast, the show that brings you the most addictive action stories out there. I'm Adrian, and I am so pumped for today's story.
That's a good one.
We're diving into a tale that flips the script on the legendary Count Dracula.
You got that right.
Joining me to unpack this wild ride is the amazing Julia.
Glad to be here.
Are you ready to tackle this?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so get this. Shadow Alliance, where Dracula is, well, he's not really the villain.
Not exactly, no.
More like humanity's unlikely protector.
You could say that.
Okay, hold on. You're telling me the Prince of Darkness, the blood-sucking terror of Transylvania, is teaming up with humans?
It's wild, right?
It's like finding out Darth Vader's running a puppy adoption agency. Okay, I have to hear this.
Okay, so imagine Dracula. After centuries of self-imposed exile, right? He's older, weary,
Right.
and the world has moved on. He's a relic.
Yeah, I get it. Times have changed.
Exactly. But then a new threat emerges. Something so terrifying it forces him out of the shadows.
Something worse than Dracula. That's a tough one to imagine.
It's pretty bad.
What are we talking? Giant radioactive spiders.
Not spiders, but think lab-created creatures.
Okay.
Monstrous beings driven by this insatiable hunger they consume without purpose, like a force of nature.
Yeah, okay, that's definitely giving me end-of-the-world vibes.
Yeah.
So does Dracula suddenly develop a conscience? Becomes humanity's champion?
Not exactly a conscience. It's more about survival,
Right.
A human rep approaches Dracula, reveals the threat these creatures pose to both humans and vampires.
Okay.
Facing annihilation, he's got a choice. Fight alongside his former enemies, or risk being consumed by this new breed of monster.
That's a heck of a dilemma for the ultimate predator.
It really is.
So where does this epic showdown happen? I'm picturing some Gothic castle.
Not quite. It all goes down in the industrial underbelly of a human city.
Really?
Think grime, decay, rusting metal.
Interesting.
Almost a reflection of Dracula's internal struggle.
Ooh, I like that symbolism. Okay, so how does this unlikely alliance actually work? Are we talking humans and vampires strategizing over tea and biscuits?
Not quite, teen. Elaborate.
Okay.
And the Dracula himself, luring these creatures into kill zones.
I can't even picture this. Dracula, the ultimate Night Stalker, being used as bait. It's like a horror movie where the monster's the reluctant hero. What makes him such effective bait, though? Do these lab-created creatures have some innate knowledge of him?
That's a great question. It seems that even though they're artificial, they're drawn to Dracula's energy, his status as the first and most powerful vampire.
So it's not just his blood.
Yeah.
They sense his power, his history. So are we talking about a reluctant truce here or genuine collaboration between humans and vampires?
There's definitely tension, mistrust, but the story describes this grim purpose, this terrible camaraderie that emerges, from the chaos of battle.
I can imagine it.
It's a bond forged in fear, a recognition that they need each other to survive.
That's intense.
Yeah.
You have to wonder about this psychological impact, right? The fear and distrust bubbling under the surface. It's like a ticking time bomb. So does this whole partnership, Julia, does it change how humans see Dracula? Do they still fear him, or is there like a sense of gratitude?
That's where it gets really interesting. The story highlights how humans are exploiting the very fear they had of Dracula.
What do you mean?
They've weaponized their terror of him,
Wow. That's a really insightful observation. It makes you think about fear, right? And how it can be manipulated.
Exactly.
So with humans handling all the tech and strategy, what role does Dracula actually play in the fight?
He's not just a sitting duck.
No, of course not.
Centuries of experience, have honed his skills.
Right.
He's not just a brawler. He's intelligent, cunning, and understands these monsters like in a way humans never could.
So he brings his own monster fighting expertise.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's not all smooth sailing, though, right? I mean, it's Dracula. He's not known for being a team player.
You're right. It's a clash of personalities and tactics.
Yeah.
But there are these moments, right, where they synchronize Dracula's instincts and the human's ingenuity combined to devastating effect.
That's what I love about this story. It's action-packed, but with these layers of complexity.
Yeah.
It's making me rethink everything I thought I knew about Dracula.
Me too. It is a fascinating dynamic, isn't it? You've got Dracula, this ancient figure of darkness, and he's relying on humans for survival.
Yeah.
It really flips the power dynamic.
Totally. We talked about the setting earlier, the industrial wasteland. Besides the symbolism, is there a practical reason they chose to fight there?
Oh, absolutely. The humans, clever as they are, realize that these creatures, they're driven by pure instinct,
Right.
this hunger that just overrides any kind of strategy.
So they use that to their advantage.
Exactly. They choose a battlefield. It's littered with these decaying structures,
Ah.
rusted machinery, hidden passages. It's
Yeah.
perfect for setting traps, ambushes.
Because they're using the environment as a weapon.
Exactly. And it plays on those classic horror movie tropes. You always expect Dracula to be the one lurking in the shadows, but here,
Yeah.
it's the humans using the darkness to their advantage.
Like they learned from the Master of Darkness himself.
Right.
But, I mean, this alliance, it's built on such shaky ground.
Right.
How do you even begin to build trust with someone like Dracula?
That's the challenge, isn't it? The story doesn't shy away from the tension, the suspicion, between the two sides.
Right.
There's actually a scene where a human soldier, clearly terrified, has to hand Dracula a vial of blood,
Wow.
essentially giving him the power to strike him down.
That's intense.
Right.
You can practically feel the tension. It really highlights the risk the humans are taking.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, would we as humans be able to overcome that fear, that prejudice, to work with a creature like Dracula?
Even if it meant survival. That's a question worth pondering. It really speaks to our capacity for fear, but also for cooperation
Yeah.
when faced with a common enemy. But you have to wonder, what's going through Dracula's mind during all of this?
That's one of the most compelling things about this whole story. We see glimpses into his thoughts,
Yeah.
frustration at being used as bait, contempt for the humans he's forced to work with.
Right.
But
Yeah.
there's also this sense of, I don't know, weariness, maybe resignation.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't the arrogant, all-powerful Dracula of old.
Yeah.
Centuries of exile, the changing world have humbled him, forced him to adapt.
Yeah.
He's no longer the apex predator. That has to sting.
It really does change our perspective on him, right? He's not a mustache-twirling villain.
Yeah.
There's a depth. There's a melancholy. It almost makes you sympathize with him.
Almost. I'm still not sure I'd want to be stuck in an elevator with him.
Right.
But I get it. The story forces us to see him as more than just a monster.
Exactly.
It makes you question those labels of good and evil.
Right.
So in this fight against the creatures, who delivers the final blow? Who gets the glory?
That's interesting. The story never explicitly says. It focuses more on the collective effort, the way both humans and vampires have to contribute to overcome this threat.
So it's not about individual victory.
No.
It's about survival.
Exactly. They're all in it together.
Whether they like it or not. But what about Dracula? What happens to him after all this? What's next for him?
Well, that's the big question. The story ends with this feeling of, uneasy victory.
Yeah.
The threat is gone, but the world has changed irrevocably. The alliance, it's fragile at best.
Right.
And Dracula's place in this new world, uncertain. He's gone from this apex predator to, reluctant hero.
Yeah.
It's unclear what path he chooses.
I love that. It's a good open ending. It leaves you wanting more, keeps you thinking.
Yeah.
So, Julia, what do you think is the most important takeaway from Shadow Alliance? What does it tell us about ourselves?
Yeah.
About good and evil? The choices we make when faced with, unimaginable threats.
I think it highlights our capacity for both darkness and light,
Yeah.
Humans, vampires, these seemingly opposing forces, but they're united by a common enemy.
Right.
It shows that even in the darkest of times, we can find common ground, even with those we fear and distrust.
Absolutely.
And it reminds us that survival sometimes means, making these uneasy alliances,
Right.
challenging our preconceived notions.
Yeah.
Recognizing the potential for change, even in the most unexpected places.
I love that. It's a reminder that the lines between hero and villain, they're rarely clear-cut.
Definitely not.
And sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones we least expect.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to the Action Hero Podcast, where we explore those stories, that make you want more. We're wrapping up our look at Shadow Alliance,
Right.
the tale that totally flipped the script on Dracula.
Flipped it good.
Julia, we've talked about this crazy alliance, these epic battles, but the story leaves us with so many questions.
So many questions.
What happens next?
I know.
Can this alliance even last?
Right.
What happens to Dracula?
That's what's so brilliant about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't tie everything up neatly with a bow, We're left with this image of a world on the brink. And Dracula, this ancient force at a crossroads.
It's like watching a villain suddenly become the good guy.
Yeah.
You're cheering for him, but you're kind of waiting for him to go back to his old ways.
Exactly. And that uncertainty is what makes Shadow Alliance so thought-provoking, right?
Yeah.
It challenges us to think, like, can someone like Dracula really change?
I mean, can centuries of darkness be erased,
Yeah.
by a few heroic acts?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, is he really capable of change?
Right.
Or is this just temporary, born out of necessity?
I mean, he's still Dracula, the legendary bloodsucker.
Exactly. The story doesn't shy away from that.
Right.
There's a scene where, even in the middle of this alliance, he's clearly tempted to give in to his darker urges.
Oh, wow.
It's a struggle.
That internal conflict is so interesting. He's caught between what he was and what he could be,
It's like he doesn't even know who he is anymore.
It makes you wonder, if Dracula can find a new path, what does that say about our own potential for change?
Yeah.
You know?
That's a powerful thought, Adrian.
I mean, this isn't just about monsters and mayhem. It's about our own capacity for good and evil.
Yeah. It forces us to look inward.
Right.
Think about the darkness within ourselves, and if we can break free from our own past.
Man, this story is blowing my mind.
Right.
You know what else I love?
What's that?
The way it flips those classic vampire tropes.
Mm.
Like, instead of being a creature of the night, he's out in the open fighting alongside those he used to terrorize.
I know. It's so refreshing.
And the setting, that industrial wasteland.
Right.
It just emphasizes everything. It's a far cry from the usual Gothic castles and misty graveyards.
Yeah.
It's almost like a metaphor for the old ways crumbling.
Yeah.
Everything's changing.
Totally.
Even what it means to be a monster.
It makes you think, what's next for action stories?
Right.
Maybe we're moving past those black and white hero versus villain narratives,
Maybe.
Maybe the most exciting stories are the ones that explore those gray areas.
Yeah.
The blurred lines.
That's what makes Shadow Alliance so compelling.
I agree.
It's a story for today, right? One that acknowledges how complex the world is. And it stays with you long after you've finished it.
I know. It leaves you with this sense of wonder.
Mhm.
Makes you want to explore those unanswered questions.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen to Dracula?
Right. What about the world he lives in now?
Exactly.
Well, Julia, I think we've uncovered some truly epic stuff today. Thanks for joining me.
It's been my pleasure, Adrian.
And to everyone listening, if you're craving more tales of adventure and carnage, rate and follow the Action Hero Podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with another story that'll keep you on the edge of your seat.
Can't wait.
Until then, stay heroic.